Look, we completely unmasked this thing right here.
Yeah.
Dana Bash is a giant hypocrite. She's allowed to call the Republican Party neo-fascists all day long, compare them to murderers, compare them to rapists, compare them to genociders. But Vivek Ramaswamy is not able to do the same thing. Look, fair is fair. Stop calling the Republican Party neo-fascists or shut your effing mouth. Yes.
So before he comes on, we're going to watch this clip. We're going to talk about it. Vivek was on CNN yesterday, I believe, and he said some interesting comments that have been getting him in the hot water. It's fascinating because have you seen the polls, the post-debate polls?
I have seen some in videos. I haven't looked at them personally.
Right.
Yeah.
Every single one of them
have moved around a lot.
Every single one of them is wildly different.
Right. Yes.
Like,
yeah, that's what I'm noticing.
I don't trust any of these. I don't understand any of these polls. I don't trust any of these polls. Every single one of them is so different from the other one. I'm like, okay, this is all just, what is this? What does this mean? What am I supposed to infer from all this?
What is happening with that?
Some of them show that they all show generally that DeSantis gained points, which makes sense. Some of them show Vivek gained points. Some of them show he lost points. I don't understand which one to believe, who to trust here at this moment. It's fascinating. I think there is something unusual about Vivek, which is that he was kind of a very relatively unknown candidate. I think he still is relatively lesser known to the average person. And yet there seems to be such a hyper fixation on him from the media, especially after the debate. And do you think that's just because he's like the new toy, the new thing, so he's interesting? Or do you think that the media, the left-wing media, senses that he is a threat, and so they want to destroy him?
There is that going on, that they do sense some threat by him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm torn because it could go either way. It could be that they see him as an actual threat, or they don't see him as any kind of threat, so therefore they can just beat up on him mercilessly as much as possible.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because, if you remember in 2016, the same thing happened in the Republican primary where it'd be like every I don't know, a couple of weeks or so, the media would hyperfixate on one of the Republican candidates, and then Trump would destroy them, and then that candidate would kind of disappear. And then that would just be like this recurring cycle. They'd be like 2 weeks of talking about Jeb, 2 weeks of talking about Ben Carson, 2 weeks talking about Rick Perry or whoever else was in the race. And so I'm curious if that's what's happening here with Vivek. Is it just that he's new, he's interesting, people want to talk about him because they're bored? Or I do think that they perceive him as a threat, which is why the debate performance is kind of interesting to me, because I think there's two things happening here. And actually, I think there's three things happening here with Vivek and why he's kind of interested in me. I don't think he's trying to, we all see this, he's obviously trying to become like Trump Jr. He wants to be the Trump alternative. He wants to appeal to the Trump base. But the problem is, I don't think that's his natural personality or character, because a lot of Trump's appeal is that he will kick over the table and tell people to F off. He's very no apologies, ever, no backtracking ever, people like that. But that doesn't seem to be like Vivek's personality at all. He seems to be more like this kind of I want to be everyone's buddy. I'm like the Hollywood producer guy. I'm like the tech bro. And he has a completely different personality type than Donald Trump. And so I wonder if that clash is going to make it impossible for him to gain the Trump crowd's traction.
I'm not certain that his goal is to be likable. I mean, he's saying such incendiary things. You really think he's trying to be the likable tech bro?
No. I'm saying, okay, maybe I didn't make myself clear. I'm saying that I think his natural personality is that he wants to be the likable tech bro, but he knows he can't do that because he's trying to appeal to the Trump crowd. So he's trying to be more Trump-like.
Okay.
And so it comes off it comes off like phony. You've been calling him the fake. It just comes off weird. He doesn't quite have the natural gruffness that Trump does.
Right. Okay. That's like an aesthetic thing. I don't know that I'm sensing that.
Mm-hmm.
I have a visceral dislike for Vivek
I
because
know
I
you
don't
do.
like his policies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
He's
Right.
into disenfranchising voters, which totally rubs me the wrong way. He's also talking about economic things in ways that are just completely unproductive.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's definitely a representative of the wealthy elites and pretending to be a populist. That's the way that I look at him.
Mm.
Yeah. He's populist on social issues, right? Which is this is the way a lot of politicians go, right? They're going to be populist on the social issues and get elected, but they're really not going to do anything for the working class. Right?
Is he? I'm trying to remember. For his economic policies,
This is a guy that's going to raise your retirement age to 99.
Is his economic policies? He just neoliberal across the board. He's not populist on economics.
He wanted to make the depositors in the bank collapses all lose all their money, lose all their life savings. Yeah.
Yeah, but
that's a pretty cruel move.
But that's what the internet right wanted. That's why, like, it seems like so many of his positions are just, what does the internet right want? That's my position.
Right.
So that's why I was kind of curious. I know you don't want to. I was kind of curious. Maybe I'll have to do it to read his
Reach
book.
out to him?
No, to read his book because I'm curious if there's like to see like what is the real Vivek and what is this like persona that he's crafted that he's just trying to listen to the internet right and do whatever they say.
I like one policy on an American identity. That's the only policy that he has that I like. I don't like any of his economic policies. I don't like any of his crazy voting policies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it. What he did on climate change in the debate just strikes me as legalistic and slimy. Like he said, the climate change agenda is a hoax, so that he had some wiggle room with journalists. So he could say, look, I'm not saying climate change is a hoax. Okay, look, I'm a science guy. I know the truth. But he said that specifically to signal to the vast part of the Republican base that thinks climate change itself is a hoax. So he's walking this line.
Right.
That doesn't strike you as slimy as
one man's slimy is another man's one man's slimy is another man's smart, right?
I did. I mean, I said legalistic.
Yes.
Yeah. He's crafting things that can be said, can be heard in two ways by two different audiences and mean completely different things.
Right. Trump does that all the time, though.
But this is the art of politics a lot of times. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Still slimy.
I mean, I don't disagree. Sure.
This is a thing. I want to know their positions. The whole idea, and this is why it strikes me as slimy. The whole idea of elections is we all know the candidates' policy prescriptions, and we're all voting based on those policy prescriptions. They pitch us prescriptions, and we say those prescriptions will work for me. And if enough people come to that conclusion, then that policy theoretically gets enacted. When somebody comes out and says the climate change agenda is a hoax, what's the policy prescription?
I don't know.
It muddies the water.
Mm-hmm.
He's telling the people who don't believe in climate change nothing will be done, and he's telling people that do believe in climate change but think the Democratic agenda is off. I'm one of those people, by the way, that he's going to do something about it, but we don't know what he's going to do because he's literally made a declaration. If he came out and said climate change is real and these are my policies to fix it, then his subterfuge with the people that think climate change is a hoax is lost. So he can't do that.
Okay.
That makes sense?
It does.
Do you know Vivek's climate change policies?
I have no idea what his policy is, no.
Do you think his policy about the election, the transfer of power was Real or for fake?
You mean his so if you guys didn't hear it, so we talked about this when we covered the debate, and I said the one person who should have answered the question, or I was curious to hear his answer on the question,
Right.
did he support Mike Pence on what he did on January 6th?
Right.
Was Vivek.
Certifying the election.
Right. And Vivek didn't answer that question. He wasn't really asked the question. They kind of skipped him. So I did see a clip where someone asked him this question directly. And is this what you're referring to? Did you hear the answer? Yeah, I sent it to you.
I did, yeah.
The answer to this question, I think it was Chuck Todd asked him this question. And the answer he gave was really bizarre.
Right.
He said that...
He said, first of all, with my powers as Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, no. He said what he would have done if he was in Mike Pence's position was he would have used his power as president of the Senate,
right,
to try to get Congress to pass a bunch of nationwide election reform things that Republicans wanted, like every vote, like all voting has to be done on paper ballots. I think he said. He
didn't say try. He said he would get all those things passed.
Yeah, he said he would get. And I think he said he wanted it so like all voting had to be done the day of, one day on election day, which I don't think Republicans even want. So I don't even know what's up with that. And he wanted all, voting to be on paper ballots and something to that effect. And he had some other couple like reform things that he thought Republicans would like. And he said that he would make Congress pass those into law first. And then after that, after he got these concessions, he would then sign the elector slate making Biden president.
Right. None of that stuff is going to happen. He doesn't have the power for it to happen unless he's Dr. Manhattan.
Right.
And then it's questionable whether that could even be done according to the laws
it couldn't
of
actually. That's not. Yeah, it couldn't actually. Like the Senate, Congress is not in session to pass laws on that day, so that couldn't even function properly the way he was suggesting.
Right. So even if he had Dr. Manhattan's powers, it ain't happening.
Well, I mean, if he's Dr. Manhattan, he'll just blow people up and make them do it. Just But normally, without his Dr. Manhattan powers, no, that was a completely weird, bizarre answer. But to me, it sounded like, and this is where the Vivek comes in. The Vivek comes in, is that it feels like
he will say anything.
Well, no, because it's like, so he had criticized Trump in the past. He criticized Trump specifically for not showing up to debates in the past. And it just feels like he has one set of beliefs that are real, and then all this kind of like pandering to Trump is all fake. And it's kind of like he's wearing these cement shoes that are just dragging him down because he's not being authentic.
Right.
So, PC, thanks so much, PC, for the 10 gifted memberships. Thank you. JMac, thanks so much, JMac, our surrogate father, for the $20. Says Sitch, now that Wizard of the Coast has made the correct and progressive choice by removing the word tribal from the game, what typal deck are you building? Yeah, so it's very bizarre. If you've ever played Magic: The Gathering, very famous card game, you used to be able to make a deck based around a specific tribe, like, oh, I have an all-goblin deck. Your tribe was called Goblin, right? Or, oh, I have an all-cleric deck. My tribe was Cleric. Or Knights, or Bird People, or whatever, Merfolk. And they were literally called tribes. And for some bizarre woke reason, I guess it's offensive to Native Americans or something, they think it is, they've decided to remove the word tribal from the game. It doesn't exist anymore. Adam doesn't care. Adam just left. He's like, we're talking about Magic. I'm out of here. I'm out of the room. Anyway, to me, completely insane that tribal, I don't know how tribal is an offensive word to anyone other than an enlightened centrist. So.
Cool.
Thank you. He's back. J-Mac, our surrogate father, thanks so much for the 20. Thanks so much for the 20 gifted memberships, J-Mac. Magus the Red for $50. Thank you, Magnus. Says, thanks again, boys, for the great show. Your videos changed my racist coworkers' minds about color blindness. Free will for the win. Well, that's awesome. Look at that. Based. Good job.
Sweet.
Thanks for showing them. Okay. So let's watch this clip. Vivek's on CNN. He got into some hot water for some spicy comments he made. Let's see.
is 2024 presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. Thank you so much for joining me this morning, sir. I want to start with what I began the program with, which is this racist shooter killing 3 black people in Jacksonville yesterday. What is your reaction to the shooting?
Oof.
I know. Wow.
Jesus Christ.
Why did you start us off with this?
Oh no!
This
is the setup. Okay, so this is like
a terrible tragedy. I don't know if you know about this story.
Yeah, I know about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about some element?
Well, for those of you who have not heard, I guess there was a shooter who had an assault rifle with swastikas all over it that went to a university, planning on shooting up the university. A security guard turned him away. Thank God, right?
Right.
And then he went to a local store and shot 3 people, which is just horrific. So,
yes.
But more people could have died at the university.
Right. Well, I mean, it shows you that actually having security, helps.
Still terrible.
Of course.
Abhorrent behavior, obviously. Right. So.
But this is, you'll see why she's asking him this question, because she's not really interested in the answer to his question. This is the setup for a trap. So this is her laying down the bear trap that he walked into.
It is such a tragedy, and my heart goes out to those families. This should not be happening in the United States of America, and it is wrong. The reality is we have a mental health epidemic in this country. There are reports that this particular individual, the perpetrator, was indeed evaluated for mental health deficiencies as well. And I think we need to have the courage in this country to bring back a practice of putting back psychiatrically ill people who pose a risk to their communities into psychiatric institutions, not just drugging them up, but faith-based approaches and other approaches that fill our longing for purpose and meaning in this country. I think.
So, I mean, listen, I'm all for bringing back some level, obviously, of institutionalization for people that are actually suffering from severe mental illnesses. I don't know what the specifics were with the shooter. I don't know what he means by faith-based solutions. What does that mean?
It's just a buzzword.
Well, I mean, is he going to pray the crazy away? Like, what does that mean?
Look, it's meaningless as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, that's very strange.
Look, it's so he can signal to Republican voters. Look, I'm a man of God.
Right.
I think it is just a shame that we even have mass shootings like this, be it the one that happened in Florida, be it the recent one, the Nashville shooter in a Christian school, killing 6 in a school. We have to address that mental health epidemic, and we need leaders with the courage to do it. But my heart goes out to those families, and I hope something like this never happens again.
Mental health is one aspect of these shootings, and apparently, and we're still learning a lot about what happened. The facts are still coming out. Also, this was very much apparently racially motivated. The sheriff there said point blank that this shooter had manifestos coming, 3 manifestos, and said specifically that he went to this dollar store with the intent of killing black people.
So let me pause it just for the filter.
Has the manifesto been released already?
I don't believe so.
Right, because the parents were in charge of the manifesto. It wasn't posted online.
Well, here will be an interesting question. Now, they're different states, so there's different considerations. I'll be curious if they do. Will they ever release the manifesto? Because it's like everyone knows he's racist. It's not like it's a. I mean, he literally has swastikas on his gun, right? So,
yeah, sure.
What is there a purpose to releasing the manifesto? Should they release the manifesto?
Well, of course, they want to be able to pick apart all of the people that he cites in the manifesto and
but I'm saying
blame on them as politicians or content creators.
You're talking about from a very cynical perspective. But I'm saying like from a social contagion perspective, if you want to actually stop these events, should these manifestos be released to the public?
Probably not.
Okay.
In all honesty, it's probably
right.
for the worst.
Yeah. Yeah. Though it will be interesting if his manifestos do get released, and the Nashville shooter manifestos, I believe, still have never been released.
Well, as a person curious about what motivates these things, I'm interested. Obviously, I would like to read those manifestos. I'm sure everyone would. So whether or not that's going to be better for society, whether or not it's going to lead to more shootings, I think it's probably safe to say it is going to lead to more shootings.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree completely. Like, personally, yes, I would be interested and morbidly curious to read the manifestos to understand what motivates some of these people. But socially, it probably would have a more negative effect than a positive effect.
Right. I wonder if they could set it up in a way where you could go and read it personally, but it wasn't published online. So there was
like you had to go to a physical location.
Right. Yeah. So people could have access to it if they wanted to study it. If you're a sociologist or a social psychologist or something like that, you could have access to it. But I mean, you could have access to it as the part of the general public if you wanted to go to the location, but it would not be readily accessible to just anyone.
You have to go to your local library and ask them to read the shooter manifesto.
Well, the thing,
they take you to like some back shady room, and you have to like look through a viewfinder, like one of those old like newspaper things.
You just don't want the crazies having access to it, right? That's what you're worried about, because you don't want copycat shooters.
Yes, but
so I'm trying to come up with some sort of solution where it's not just black holed forever.
You know that if there's any releasing of it at all, it will leak. So it doesn't matter. Like, I feel like there's no way to have like a limited release in today's world.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, it depends upon how you construct the institution. If you're keeping track of everyone that looks at it and it leaks, you throw that motherfucker in jail.
Yeah, but okay. I mean, if this was in literally one place, you had to fly to like one centralized location.
We can set it up. You know, there's no need to fight on this, Sitch. We can set up the institution however it is that's appropriate.
Okay.
We don't have to. We don't have to design the institution here on the stream.
Okay, fair enough.
Move forward. Yeah.
I think that is heinous and deserves to be called out for what it is. The reality is we've created such a racialized culture in this country in the last several years that right as the last few burning embers of racism were burning out, we have a culture in this country largely created by media and establishment and universities and politicians that throw kerosene on that racism. And I can think of no better way to fuel racism in this country than to take something away from other people on the basis of their skin color. I've been saying that for years. And I think that is driving, sadly, a new wave of anti-Black and anti-Hispanic racism in this country.
Yeah, what is he talking about? What just happened there?
Well, no, so I agree with what he said. So he's basically saying that what he's saying is wokeness is basically making people become more racist on both sides.
But didn't she ask him about gun control?
Well,
how is this an answer for a gun control question?
He's going to just talk about whatever he wants to talk about. Right?
She specifically asked him about gun control, right?
I don't know. I don't remember, honestly.
Oh, okay. I believe she asked him about gun control. So I don't know how that answer syncs up with a question about gun control.
No, he said, she didn't. She said, the sheriff said that the shooter had the man.
Oh, she asked him about racism in general.
She didn't ask him about gun control. She asked him about like the racism element of it. So
right.
But I mean, but this is what I've always been saying. You know, there has been an uptick in white nationalism that we've all probably seen. If you're on the internet to some capacity, at least it seems like it's increased, or at least people become more vocal about it. And I don't know, to me, it seems very clear that when I hear these people talk, it is like wokeness is at least used as the forward-facing argument or the recruiting tool to get people into these ideologies.
Right.
So Now, that obviously does not absolve blame for people who become white nationalists, because some people like to twist that around for some reason. But
I think the right way is, if we want to stop hate and discrimination on the basis of race, let's stop discriminating on the basis of race and see what unites us as Americans, because I do not think this kind of racial division and any division is good for us as the United States.
I believe that there are a lot of people of color in this country who don't think it was just lasting embers of racism, but that a lot more work had to be done, particularly given the history of the systemic racism in this country with slavery and beyond. I want to ask you about a
it's funny. She says, I don't think people, black people specifically, believed that there was just lasting embers of racism in this country because of systemic racism. I don't think she knows what systemic racism means in terms of how it's used today, because she's kind of using it in the classical sense of like
Right.
systemic racism means there's like literally a legal institution that is racist against black people.
Right. Jim Crow.
Yeah. Which is fascinating. This, to me, this shows so many of these people on the left who are like, liberal Democrats are basically adopting talking points and arguments from the radical left, and they don't understand them.
They don't know it.
Yeah, they don't understand it, or they don't know it.
They're not even aware of it.
Yeah, and I think that's why, in the debate that we covered between Coleman Hughes and Jamel Bowie, he basically outlined that he was a Marxist without actually saying the word Marxist.
He did, and I don't even know that the moderators caught it.
I don't think anyone caught it. So,
comment that you made about white supremacy in Iowa on Friday.
Okay, so this is why she asked the question.
Right. This is a clip I wanted to play. So
Right.
there's another clip of them asking Ibram X. Kendi what he thinks of this, because he
Yes.
calls Ibram X. Kendi out in this clip.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I wish VIVEK had better economic policies, because I'm a bit of a fan of this, since look, he's calling out racism like an old school liberal would. He's saying, listen,
Right.
we can't ask all of our colleges and universities to teach black people that it's impossible for them to be racist.
Right.
That's not going to end well.
I've never once encountered that yet. I'm sure the boogeyman white supremacist exists somewhere in America. I've just never met him. Never seen one.
So, this is a really stupid answer. This is a really stupid way to start the question. I've seen some people I've seen Scott Adams make this point, but I assume, he's a boomer. He's not like in these places. I could understand Scott Adams has probably never interacted with like white supremacists, white nationalists or something. But with Vivek, I know that's literally not true. I know that he's lying here. And you know how I know he's lying?
How?
Because a month ago, I retweeted Vivek calling out
Right. You're right.
the white
Yes.
nationalist. Because like a month ago, Vivek very publicly, and I gave him massive credit for doing this, which is why it's kind of sad that, I think he's kind of making a lot of missteps here, is that he had a big tweet about how being American, and it's so funny, I think he actually it was like a back and forth with John Doyle, actually, who's obviously a white nationalist.
Wow. So he did meet one in his mentions there, didn't he?
Yes. Who Vivek was saying, being America isn't about your bloodline or your heritage or your race. It's about, having these shared American ideals that the founding fathers fought and died for. That was essentially his argument. He was talking about having a shared American identity, which I'm so 100% behind. A shared American identity that is not based on your skin color or your bloodline or your lineage or anything of that nature, based on your ideals. And when he tweeted this out, John Doyle got really triggered by this. A lot of people on the right got really triggered by this. He had 2 tweets about this, and it was great because you could go through the replies and the quotes, and you could see who are like the actual racists? Like, who are the people that you're like, I wonder if these people are racist? And you're like, oh yeah, this person was racist because they got super triggered by this. And they're like, no, America was white. It's just about being white, everybody. You have to be specific type of white person from Europe to be American. Meh. Like getting really upset by this. Obviously, the fact that Vivek is not white was like further triggering this response. So that's why it's so baffling for me to hear him say this at this whenever he's asked this question, because he has met these people. He's interacted with these people. He's literally fought them on Twitter. So like they exist. They're out there. And I don't think it helps him or the Republican Party to pretend like there is not racism out there in the world. I think that just further gives the left more ammunition to say, look, the right isn't actually colorblind. The right just wants to pretend that the racists don't exist.
It gives the left ammunition, but it also does help the Republicans because a lot of Republicans don't want to believe that there's racism in the Republican Party. I mean, we argue with these people when we talk about Nazi Germany being right wing. They're like, no, it's left wing. Right wing is not, there's no racist component to right wing, which I mean, I like at some level. I wish that there was no racist component to either party. But some people are in denial about that on the left and the right. Yeah.
It can help the right in terms of like psychologically produce a narrative that makes people feel better.
Right.
Both the right and the left want to pretend that there's not racism in their party when obviously there is racism in both parties that just manifests in different ways.
Right. A lot of anti-Semitism on the left.
Yeah, and a lot of obviously anti-white racism on the left. A lot of what's it called? Like not thinking black people can succeed.
Right. Yeah.
Lower
bigotry of low expectations.
Bigotry of low expectations on the left. Yeah. So I mean, there's lots of racism that kind of manifests in both parties in different ways. And we can kind of talk. We can have a conversation about which one is more pernicious and why, and that's fine. But I think it just does not behoove anyone to pretend that one party is just absolved from racism because it's not true.
Right.
Never met one in my life, right? Maybe I'll meet a unicorn sooner, and maybe those exist too.
So just because somebody hasn't encountered one doesn't mean that the notion of white supremacy doesn't exist as a threat in America. What do you think goes through the minds of the families of the 3 victims in yesterday's shooting when they hear you say that white supremacy is basically a fantasy?
Boy, she just hit him in the mouth, didn't she?
Well, that's why, I mean, again, that's why this was a terrible answer, because on the off chance that there would be another racist shooting or attack, which is not, I mean, they've definitely happened in our country with somewhat frequent encounters. So it's such a dumb comment for him to make.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's see what he says.
Yes.
You got me hooked now.
I'm sure they're grieving for their loss, and I don't want to politicize those victims. Dana, this is a very sensitive situation where we should have nothing but foremost respect for those victims and not bring them into partisan politics. But I was responding to a question where someone asked me, what racism have I experienced in recent years? And I answered honestly, most of that racism has come from the modern left. It's happening during the course of this campaign. Kara Swisher calling me Ramaswamy the other day and reveling in making twists of my last name.
Adam.
I'm not going to stop. Sorry.
You did a racism earlier in the beginning of the stream because you used that same term, that same name for Vivek.
Well, now I can add this to the stack of reasons why I'm not supporting Vivek here.
That's another racism. You just did a racism.
He's playing the race card. I can't believe you're playing the race card in a Republican primary.
Well, I mean, in the he's trying to extricate himself from this very, very dangerous position. So he's like, "No, you're the racist."
With a whataboutism. Right. What about me? What about all the racism I'm getting?
Mm-hmm. I mean,
I don't like it. I'm not buying it.
It doesn't bother me, like him saying
this is a dodge.
I agree.
100% a dodge.
I agree with you. But I'm saying him saying this, the smarmy thing doesn't bother me as being racist, even though I don't think it is racist, remotely racist. I think, people calling Clarence Thomas a race traitor and the C word is racism, and and calling Larry
Indian
Elder
people can't be smarmy.
Well, it's not that. It's just
there is no stereotype of Indian people being smarmy.
Well, no. So the idea would be that just using someone's name because it's not a Anglican name, and then adding a twist to it is like, that's the racism. Now, I don't think it is, but we all know that we would hear, like, if he was on the left, I agree with you. But if he was on the left and Trump gave him some nickname like Vivek Ramaswamy, everyone on the left would say Trump is racist for doing that.
Of course they would, and I would say the exact same thing.
Right.
You lying! You lie!
Right.
It's just it's bullshit.
Well, on one hand, I agree with you because I don't think it is racist. But on the other hand, if they're going to use some kind of fake tactic against you, I think it's fair to throw it back in their face and say, they're hypocrites.
I don't.
Okay.
Not if your ultimate goal is to stop people using the tactic.
You know what? That's a good point. You've changed my mind. I agree.
People effectively reducing me to the color of my skin and my attributes. That comes today from the modern left. But the reality is,
do you
this is
acknowledge,
part of
though,
a
that
dogma
white
in this
supremacy
country.
does still exist in the United States?
I acknowledge that all forms of racial animus exist in the United States, including fringe branches. I mean, that's clearly what was at the head of this mentally deranged individual responsible for this shooting, yes. But I think there are many forms of mental derangement that cause us to see one another on the basis of our skin color and our attributes. And I think what we need to revive, Dana, and it's my job as the leader, hopefully as the next president, to do this, to revive our doctrine of e pluribus unum. Not just celebrating our diversity and our skin-deep attributes, but celebrating what unites us across that diversity. That's what we've forgotten in the United States of America. Our true strength is the set of ideals that unite us. That's my job to revive as our next president. And I think that the next generation in particular is so starved for that, starved for commonality, starved for a nation that is...
Let me pause it because I get hit with a strike.
I don't think we ever have on CNN.
Okay. But just to make sure. But see, this is a great answer. I love this answer. This is what I wish every candidate would answer this question with, or some similar question with, because it's true. Do you disagree? You don't like this answer?
It seems like a dodge.
Well, no, she said, so the question was, do you acknowledge that white supremacy exists? And he said,
yes.
He said all forms of fringe people that believe in racial supremacy exist in this country, which is true. Right?
Right.
Okay. And he's saying this is, he wants to move away from this, that we should be focused again on this universal, or not universal, this national American identity that we can all share.
Right.
And so why it's annoying, because I feel like he's the only candidate I've heard that said this specific word or this specific idea that we needed the shared American identity. I
think claiming all of this racism has been aimed at him previously really takes the wind out of the sails of this argument, because I think that a lot of that microaggression type thinking is what's driving a lot of this racism. So his opening statement was, there's a lot of racism towards me, and we have to unite the country. Well, the way to unite the country is to stop making those claims of microaggressions.
Yeah, I mean, I understand
that
what
he
you're
just
saying.
made 5 seconds ago.
Right. I understand what you're saying. And I do think, like I think you can call out and say we need a shared American identity, and then attack and crap on people who are racist. As long as it's real, right? If I agree with you if it's like some fake microaggression stuff.
Smarmy is not real racism.
I agree. So
that's the problem.
Right.
Like, but this is the problem with this situation here, because everyone's cried wolf about racism so much that Ramaswamy can get up in front of a crowd and say, look, racism doesn't exist because you've all been called racist and you're not racist. And then this leads to this
Right.
shooter situation and Dana Bash and asking the question here. And then he comes out and says, no, there is racism. Look at all these microaggressions that are levied at me.
Right. Well,
So-
I mean, it didn't lead to it in terms of that's not what caused the shooting.
Well, in the boy that cried wolf type scenario, a lot of people are ignoring
Yes.
tangible racism because of this
Right. Yes. 100%.
crying of wolf because
100%, yeah.
somebody called me Ramaswamy.
Right. Right.
Do you disagree with the logic of that?
No, I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, I would say it's, the left created the atmosphere of crying wolf about racism, just as the right created the atmosphere of crying wolf about communism. And so it lets both sides ignore actual racism or actual communism when that stuff
When it
is
presents
rearing
itself.
its head. Yeah, when it's
Yes,
presenting
exactly.
itself. Yeah. Because both sides are just terrified of giving the other side ammunition to use against them. Because that's the other problem too, is that both sides act in bad faith in terms of, like, if you had a lot of Republicans come out and just condemn racism or something that is racist, I don't think they would gain any benefits. They would accrue no benefit from doing that.
Of course not. So when he has a bunch of white supremacists in his mentions, what incentive does he have to call them out and say, look, you guys are white supremacists? Everyone's going to go, oh, look, you're doing the same thing. You're accusing them of racism when what they're saying isn't racist. And then they bend over backwards to make
Right.
whatever racist thing they've said not appear racist, right?
Right. There will be, because what will happen is, so if Vivek calls out someone for being a white nationalist, there'll be a bunch of people who either are lying or probably a larger percent who are just confused because a lot of the language is couched in a way to hide its power level. And so they'll kind of pretend and say, oh, or they'll be fooled into thinking, oh, this person's not actually a white nationalist. They're not really saying that, blah, 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 blah. And they think that because they've been so, as you said, cried wolf to so much about the left for racism, that the natural inclination is that when someone calls someone racist, for a lot of people on the right, is to automatically assume it's not true.
Yeah, it happens to us all the time. When we see something that appears to be white nationalism and we
Right.
point it out as such, everyone's like, no, you're imagining that. That's not
Right.
really white nationalism.
Right.
That's just this other thing.
Right. And
Yeah.
obviously that's, but what I was saying is, like, and this is the problem, because if Vivek calls it out, so he's going to get people on the right that are attacking him. And then no one on the left will give him credit for doing that.
Of
Zero
course,
people on the left
yeah.
will give him credit for doing that. So from a very cynical perspective, why would anyone ever behave in this way? It doesn't unless they're operating under some kind of Ned Stark principle of honor and integrity.
Like
From
all
a power
politicians do.
Yeah, right. Like all politicians do.
Like no politicians do,
Yeah,
right?
the politicians that do that all got their heads cut off.
They did. Just
yeah.
like Ned, just like
poor
Stark.
Ned. Yeah. Spoiler. So he's not incentivized to do it because he accrues no benefit for doing it. And it's the same thing for the left with the communist stuff. It's exactly the same thing. They, if they say, oh, this person's a socialist, person's a communist, a bunch of people on the left are going to attack them saying, oh my God, they're a right-wing grifter now. They think that
Right.
this person's a communist. This is right-wing grifter. What are they talking about? They're crazy. Blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
So, I don't know what the solution to this is, but.
Unified, bigger than the sum of its parts. That's what we need to recreate in this country. And to those who say the remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination, I say no. The right remedy is actually abandoning all discrimination and moving forward with colorblind meritocracy
based.
in the United States
Hear
of
that?
America.
Did he say colorblind meritocracy?
Yes.
Man, I wish he had better economic policies.
That's what I'm saying. It's sad because, like, he's the only candidate I hear that's making this, like, really great point on people need purpose and meaning in their life, and we need a shared American identity. And I think these are two of the most important issues of our time. He's the only candidate saying it, and it's sad because, like, I think I agree with you. His economic policies and a lot of his specific, in his foreign policy, a lot of his specific policies are all, like, completely, I hate.
Right. Well, and he's kind of spoiling the well for any other candidate to say this stuff because they don't want to be thrown in the same bucket as him.
I mean, I think less so because I think we only perceive him through this lens of, like, these are the issues because they're important to us. I don't think the average American says, like, oh, shared American identity, that's Vivek's platform.
Maybe. I mean, if RFK started coming out and saying these same kind of things, do you think people wouldn't just say, "Oh, look, he's copying Vivek"?
I don't know. I mean, they might. The media might cynically do that. Yeah.
Of course they would.
You took it to another level on Friday. In addition to the comment we played, you took issue with comments from Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. She reportedly said, quote, "We don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice." About that.
Yeah.
We just found out Dana Bash is secretly into vor, everybody. a little bit of a slip of the tongue there.
Right.
Check your search results.
You said, "These are the words of the modern grand wizards of the modern KKK." You know, I'm sure, the KKK was responsible for more than a century's worth of horrific lynchings, rapes, murders of black people. How in any way are the views you're talking about comparable to the views and atrocities committed by the KKK?
Okay. So I think, well, let me ask you a question. Do you think his comment was fair to say, so Ayanna Presley, what's her name? Ayanna Presley, right?
Sure.
Adam's like,
Who cares? I don't care what her name is.
okay. Yeah, she said we don't need any more
Brown
black faces without
Right.
without what, black voices?
Right. She's basically saying the same thing Biden said when he said, "If you don't vote Democrat, you're not black." I can't stand that.
Yes. Or she said
He's saying if you're a conservative, you're not black.
what she's saying is she's directly taking the CRT prescription that if you're black, you're not really black unless your political and ideological stance adheres to some CRT version of what it means to be black. Because otherwise, if you're not doing this, if you're not adhering to CRT, you're just trying to acquire the property of whiteness, essentially. That's what a brown face is without a brown voice. It's a brown person who's a race traitor trying to achieve whiteness in our white society.
It's a black conservative.
Right, and that's what they mean. They're really saying a black conservative, or even a black moderate liberal. If really pressed, they would also agree with that. And
Sure.
I agree. I think that's a hyper racist comment. I think it should be 100% denounced. I have no problem with anyone saying that that's the modern face of the KKK at all. But so this interaction is very interesting to me because this shows me why Vivek will not be Donald Trump. Okay. If Donald Trump was asked this question in this way, say Donald Trump said the same thing, and he's asked this question by this CNN host where they said, the KKK did all these they raped people, they murdered people, Ayanna hasn't done that. How can you, call her? What do you think Trump's response to this would have been?
I have no idea. What do you think?
I think he would have been like, well, it's a very nasty question, Dana. I don't know why you asked me these very nasty, these very dishonest questions. Okay, everyone knows what I meant when I said this. Okay.
That's probably right. Yeah. That would have been a better dodge.
He says, the cake. Do you like the KKK, Dana? I don't like the KKK, but did you know that back then people did like the KKK?
Oh, okay. Stop digging, Trump. Stop digging.
No. See, this is where here. Let's
Trump endorses the KKK
listen.
is the headline in the New York Times.
You go. That would be perfect for him because he specifically said he didn't. And if they said that, it would be another feather in his cap for the fake news. But
but it would destroy him. Honestly.
It would not. You're wrong. I think you're completely wrong. But so he'd say, I don't like the KKK, but you know that back then people did like the KKK. They were accepted, just like what Ayanna said. No one criticizes her for being racist. She's accepted, just like the KKK was back then. That's what I meant. Everyone knows that's what I meant, Dana. Why are you asking me these very nasty questions?
Right.
He would completely.
That's a good response.
He would not back down. He would just attack, and he would call out the person for asking. And this is where Trump shines that I didn't really notice until I watched this interaction. And I want to remember this too. When people ask you gotcha questions, everyone knows it's a gotcha question. Everyone on
Right.
both sides knows it's a gotcha question. And very rarely do people call it out. Now if you just call it out and you don't answer, that's a bad thing. But if you call it out and say, without actually even saying gotcha, you just call it out that it's a crappy question and then give
Right.
a good answer, that's like a really powerful
That is powerful.
retort. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
you're showing everyone, I understand what's happening here.
Right.
And I'm calling it out. And it shows that you have cojones.
Right.
So I don't think Vivek gives a good answer to this question. So.
Let's hear it.
What I said is the Grand Wizards of the KKK would be proud of what they would hear her say, because there's nothing more racist than saying that your skin color predicts something about the content of your viewpoints
You
or
didn't
your
just say they
ideas.
would be proud. You said these are the words of the modern Grand Wizards of the modern KKK.
It is the same spirit. You're right about that, Dana. I think it is the same spirit to say that I can look at you and based on just your skin color, that I know something about the content of your character, that I know something about the content of the viewpoints you're allowed to express. For Ayanna Pressley to tell me that because of my skin color, I can't express my views, that is wrong. It is divisive. It is driving hate in this country.
So I think the content of his message is actually really good. I agree with everything he's saying here. I just don't think the delivery, it's not that Trump level delivery.
Right.
And I think this is why he will never be Trump. He doesn't have that delivery. He doesn't have that method of having the conversation or of replying to people, if that makes sense.
Right. No. I agree. He looks weak here. Trump would not look weak.
Yeah. But even though I think the answer he gave was great, I think it's because it's true. It's completely true. I think it's very racist for her to say if you have brown skin and you respond to questions in specific ways, you're wrong for doing that.
Well, she's already framed the KKK as a domestic terrorist operation with all the rapes and lynchings and stuff like that. So it's categorically different. He's talking about political speech. She's talking about terrorizing a population. So
right.
that's a comparison that she's asking him to make. She's saying,
Yes.
look, the KKK were terrorists. Are you saying that a member of Congress is a terrorist? I mean, she's racist, yes.
Right.
But is she a terrorist?
Well, I think that's why you call out the bad faithness of the question, because it's like people say things and people are hyperbolic. And you understand, and you can understand what they mean. Now, you can criticize them for being hyperbolic. I think there's nothing wrong with that. But usually when someone says something, you kind of understand what they're referring to.
Right.
So,
I mean, Trump might even go that far. He might even say something to the effect of, well, they're not committing terrorism now, but they would if they had the power. They would be killing and raping people.
I think that would be a bad answer. At least from my perspective. I mean, it might be good persuasion-wise. I think it'd be bad because I don't think it's true.
She's going to pull out her inner rapist.
Right. But do you think it's fine? Do you agree? Do you think it's right or not right? Unright? Do you think it's right or not right for him to have said that comment in the first place?
Well, the comment was meant to be incendiary and to drive the news cycle.
Yes. That's a good point. Yes.
And right now, Ron DeSantis,
and it was very successful.
Yeah, exactly. Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, they're all sitting in front of a TV screen somewhere thinking, God, I wish I had the nerve to say something like that. Right?
Right.
This is the thing about Ramaswamy. I think he is really only in the race as a spoiler candidate. I don't think he's in the race actually to win. I mean, that might change if all of a sudden he's beating Trump in the polls because it's the presidency of the United States, right?
Right.
Like, I don't think this guy would stop if he thought he could actually be president of the United States. But at this point in the game, he doesn't think that's a possibility, which really means I can say anything. I can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that saying and doing anything is getting a lot of attention. So I think the Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, they actually think I could win this. I could be president of the United States. So they see this as throwing their campaign away.
Right.
It's a interesting dynamic. It really is. So
This is dividing
Okay, that
our
is a
country
debate.
to a breaking point.
That is
and
a
I think we need to
debate
move beyond it.
that is based on nonviolent discussion. That you just said you're using rhetoric, which she
Yes.
said she's using rhetoric. That's one thing, and another thing is to say that she represents and she is a modern version of a KKK, which, as you know, was dedicated to the subjugation and violence against black people. How on earth is she a modern
Dana,
grand
let's
wizard
be
of
intellectually
that
honest.
kind of organization?
Let's be intellectually honest and get to the heart of what this debate ought to be about. There is a world.
Dana Bash just got totally triggered because he called her dishonest to her face. Did you see her do that little head move?
No,
You're calling me dishonest?
Wait, I
Calling
missed it.
me dishonest? She's
Yeah,
about to
let's
drop
be
the
elect-
Ramaswamy.
That
honest.
kind of organization.
Let's be intellectually honest and get to the heart of what this debate ought to be about. There is a worldview that
Did
says
you see that? She was like, almost hit me with that
Right.
dishonest comment.
It's like the record in her head skipped.
It did.
Yeah.
This mofo just called me dishonest
That's
on
fine.
my own show.
I know.
that the remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. That if you're black or brown, you have to have a particular point of view. That's from Ibram Kendi. That's from Ayanna Pressley, the people I quoted in my speech yesterday.
But can
There's
you
a
have
different
an
view that
intellectually
I have, which
honest
says that regardless
conversation
of who you are,
when you accuse
have to be
her
able to
of
have your
being
own
a
opinion.
grand wizard
Let's
of
have
the
the debate.
KKK? Can you?
Look, half of what she said is true. Subjugating black people is exactly what they want to do. They want to do it socially. They're not doing it violently, but they are trying to subjugate black people. If you say you can't be a conservative and be black, what are you doing? Of course you're subjugating them.
Yeah.
If you're saying if you're going to be a conservative, we're not even going to include you in the black community. Yes, you're totally subjugating them.
You have that
the
intellectually honest
point is-
discussion.
Well, here's what I would be interested in, and maybe Trump would have responded this way. Be like, Dana, what do you think that question? You think what Ayanna Pressley said was racist? Do you think that was a fine thing for her to say?
Oh yes, he does that. He turns it around on the reporter.
Yes.
You answer.
You answer the question. Do you think it was racist? Why don't you think you think it's okay to say that black people have the same opinion?
Sitch, or if you've been working on your Trump impersonation, it's
No, is
very
it getting
good
better?
now.
Oh,
it
okay,
is.
thank
It's
you.
getting amazing.
Thank you.
I feel like you might be listening to some Trump rallies or something.
Listen, I go to sleep every night listening to Donald Trump. Okay. I listen to
Nice.
Donald Trump ASMR as I drift off to sleep.
I hope that comes up in our conversation with Pondering Politics.
That kind of rhetoric.
And Dana, because the point I'm highlighting is that even the people who in good spirit, we all agree that the KKK was an awful organization that is a toxic stain in our national history. So given that we can start from that point of agreement, now that allows us to say, well, who actually sounds more like that organization today? The people who are calling for more racial discrimination on the basis of skin color. So yes, I think that is an
But it's not
intellectually
about
useful starting point
sounding
for a provocative
like
discussion that we need to have in this country.
The whole point is
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good answer. I just think the way in which he's saying it is not persuasive.
Right. And she's focused on the physical violence, the terrorism.
Right. But you just have to ignore that or slap that down or
Well,
whatever.
I wish he would point that out specifically.
Right.
If he's saying, if you're talking about engaging in physical violence or acts of terrorism, thank goodness they have not gone to those lengths yet. But who knows where this road will lead?
I'm not sure. I don't know if I agree that would be like a good. Well, it would be good as a person running for a Republican candidate. That is a
Right.
persuasive thing. I don't know if it'd be good for like an actual like furthering the conversation in and trying to make the country come together.
It definitely is othering certain people.
Yes. So,
Well, I mean, he's othering
because I mean, like
racists,
pushing
so.
the idea that like, the Democrats are going to round up people in the camps. That's not.
Scott Adams points that out every live stream.
I know he does. Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think that's conducive to trying to build a national unity identity or anything.
Right.
But it would be good.
Elect me or you're going to be rounded up.
Right. But it would be good for a person running for office. So I don't know. Maybe Trump would say something like that.
And I think
KKK
the reality,
wasn't just
Dana,
about rhetoric.
We have to speak openly.
They lynched people. They murdered people. They raped people. They burned their homes.
And that was wrong.
Simply
that was
because
obviously wrong.
Wrong. Okay. So again,
that is obviously a wrong thing.
If you want to have an intellectual discussion, do you think?
I think that's a bad answer because it's like obviously we know that Vivek thinks it's wrong. That's why he used the comparison in the first place.
Right.
So.
Do you think that maybe comparing her to the Grand Wizard and the notion of what she said to being a modern leader of the KKK was maybe a step too far? Are you?
How often does Dana Bash call Trump a fascist? I'm pretty sure it's on the reg. So I just
I doubt she's ever used that word specifically.
They say on CNN all the time that Trump praised neo-Nazis.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Neo-Nazis killed people, rounded them up. Do you think Trump praised those people?
I understand. No. I'm saying
there's such a double standard here.
I don't think she's ever used the word. I'm guessing. I could be wrong. I'm guessing she hasn't ever used the word specifically fascist.
They are allowed to call Trump a supporter of neo-Nazis every day on their network. But oh my God, somebody compared a Democratic congressperson to someone in the KKK. That's too far.
Well, so
you've offended me.
It's funny. I typed in Dana Bash fascist to see what would come up.
Yes.
So 2 days ago, she had a conversation with Bernie Sanders, and she said, third-party candidate Cornel West criticized Bernie Sanders for endorsing President Biden, saying he's fearful of the neo-fascism of Donald Trump.
Right.
So there's probably the closest you're going to get.
Cornel West said that to her?
No, Cornel West said that, and she repeated the comment to Bernie Sanders.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
That's totally. She's called Trump a fascist. Yes, I am correct. Yes.
I agree. Yes.
So yeah, enough of this.
Okay.
Fainting couch over this is what drives people crazy. This double standard in the news. This complete double standard. She's like losing her mind because Ramaswamy compared a Democratic congressperson to someone in the KKK, but she's allowed to call Trump a neo-fascist all she wants.
Oh, actually,
get the fuck out of here.
I'm surprised. So here's another win for you, Adam.
She's done it again.
He did it again because you know how like Biden made the semi-fascist comment,
right?
It was like last year or something. So she basically defended Biden, saying that the semi-fascist comment, saying that it only applied to Trump supporters, and she asked, I don't know who this is, some Republican guy, if he sees fascism in the Republican Party as like a problem.
Right. Yeah.
So
the fascists who rounded up people and murdered them.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's making a direct comparison. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You say, well, yeah, exactly. It's a good
Why are you allowed to say it?
It's a great point.
These people are such giant hypocrites. Hey, we got 15 minutes. We got some $20 super chats, so we need to wrap this up. Do you want it?
Let's finish out. The video's almost done. So
okay.
Stand by what you said.
I stand by what I said to provoke an open and honest discussion in this country, because there is a gap, Dana, between what people will say in private today and what they will say in public. I think we need to close that gap. I think we need to have real, open, honest, raw conversation as Americans. That is our path to national unity. And there are many Americans today who are deeply frustrated by the new culture of anti-racism that's really racism in new clothing. And we need to have that debate in the open. Dana, I think that you're doing, with due respect, what many in the media do, picking on some fringe comment in the context of a broader context that I was offering it in a speech.
All right, so you just said that your comment was fringe.
Let's have the courage to confront the meat of that. I'm saying you drew a fringe comment from a much longer speech. As
like it's basically just like falling apart into debate, bro, on live television with CNN.
Look, we completely unmasked this thing right here.
God.
Dana Bash is a giant hypocrite. She's allowed to call the Republican Party neo-fascists all day long, compare them to murderers, compare them to rapists, compare them to genociders. But Vivek Ramaswamy is not able to do the same thing. It's just, look, fair is fair. You know,
Right.
Stop calling the Republican Party neo-fascists or shut your effing mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Look, people have to put down the guns. Look, it's so apparent here. It's like, no, we get to shoot you in the face all day long. You shoot us and it's, how dare you? Please stop. Look, I am in favor of both sides putting down the guns. I'm in favor, you know, I don't want Ramaswamy comparing people to the KKK, and I don't want Dana Bash comparing the Republican Party to neo-fascists, okay? Let's just knock that off.
Right.
Let's talk about Republicans and Democrats in a sensible manner, right? Traditionalists and progressives, okay? We don't need all the name calling.
So Joe Scarborough also said when he heard the comments that Biden made about semi-fascists, he criticized them, saying, "What's semi about it? It's full-on fascism."
Look, come on, we're running out of time here. I love it. I love it when you're digging into details that are actually proving me right. So I'm super conflicted here. But
we're almost done.
I described you picking one fringe comment from a long speech that I gave to duck debate from the real issue that I think you don't want to have, Dana, because I think you probably agree with me on this, that this is toxic from leading politicians on dividing us on the basis of race. And I want to have the open debate.
I think this debate is fascinating and interesting and opening and important. What I did was
I do too.
Explain to our viewers that you were asked a question and you took it to a point where you called a sitting member of Congress who is black, who was having discussions about race, calling her the modern grand wizard of the KKK. And I'm just not sure how that's open and honest discussion.
You called the entire Republican Party neo-fascists?
Well,
what a hypocrite.
Trump supporters.
Well, that's a huge portion of the Republican Party, is it not? They voted for him. Look, you just called 80 million Americans neo-fascists, and then you want to grab your fainting couch over one sitting congressperson? Look, the discrepancy here is massive. It's just so one-sided. It's insane. It's insane. So people need to call these people out on this nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, I agree if, you know, there should be a ceasefire from the hyperbole on both sides, if that's what you want to push for.
Yeah, that's definitely what I want to push for. Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch and Adams show. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our live show right here on this channel on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you want, you can super chat us. We read $20 and up super chats on the show and then do a follow-up stream on the following Tuesday where we read the rest of the unread super chats and interact with fans of the show. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to the live show or to listen to more of our awesome clips.